He lost his wife, his hope, and almost his will to live. But the little cabin stayed quiet. Only the soft cry of a baby broke the silence. Jake Dawson, a rugged cowboy in his mid-30s, sat up slowly from the wooden chair by the crib. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. His wife had passed away just 3 weeks ago, leaving him alone on the dry Texas plains with 2 newborn twins who needed everything he didn't know how to give. His rough hands could handle a rope, fix a fence, tame a wild stallion, but they shook when he tried to mix milk or hold his tiny babies without fear. The ranch was falling apart. The cattle were restless, and Jake's heart was heavier than the saddle he hadn't touched since the funeral. "I'm trying my best." The wind outside carried dust and silence. Jake looked out at the endless land and thought maybe he wasn't made for this kind of life anymore. But fate was already riding his way, in the shape of a woman with kindness in her hands. That afternoon, the sun was harsh, and the world was quiet until 3 soft knocks broke through the cabin's stillness. Jake froze. Hardly anyone ever came this far out. When he opened the door, there she stood, a young woman in a faded blue dress, hair pulled back under a bonnet, holding a basket covered with cloth. Her eyes were kind, though cautious. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said gently. "I'm from the Carter farm, a few miles south. I bake too much bread. Thought maybe you could use some." Jake blinked, half embarrassed, half grateful. "Ma'am, thank you. I sure could." Then the babies started crying again. She tilted her head, listening, then smiled softly. "Twins?" "Yeah," Jake said with a sigh. "And just me to look after 'em." Her face changed from polite to concerned. "You're doing that alone?" He nodded. Without waiting for permission, she stepped inside, set the bread down, and said, "Then I reckon you could use an extra pair of hands." Her name was Clara May, and from that moment, the quiet cabin wasn't so lonely anymore. Days turned into weeks. Clara visited, often bringing soup, fresh bread, sometimes milk, and always her calm smile. She taught Jake how to hold the babies right, how to soothe them when they cried, how to warm the milk without burning it. At first, Jake felt awkward. He wasn't used to company, especially not from someone so gentle. But Clara had a way of filling silence without saying much. The twins giggled whenever she entered, their tiny hands reaching for her. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Jake said quietly, "I ain't sure I thanked you proper. You've done more for us than I ever could repay." Clara smiled. "Some debts aren't meant to be repaid, Jake. They're meant to be shared." He didn't know. Behind those smiles, something began to heal. Not just the baby's hunger, but the ache into lonely hearts. One dark night, the wind howled like a wounded beast. A storm rolled over the plains, fierce and sudden. The roof rattled. The cattle broke through the fence, and one of the twins, little Emma, began burning with fever. Jake panicked. He didn't know what to do. He'd seen men die from less. He tried everything, but her breathing grew shallow. Through the thunder, there came another knock on the door. Clara, soaked to the bone, clutching her shawl. "I saw the lightning and knew you'd need help," she said. She took the baby in her arms, calm as ever. "Boil water," she ordered. "Tear a clean cloth. Hurry." For hours they worked together, cooling the baby's forehead, keeping her warm, praying through the storm. By dawn, the fever broke. The tiny chest rose and fell peacefully again. "You saved her," he whispered. Clara shook her head gently. "No, Jake, you did. You didn't give up." But deep down, Jake knew without her, he would have lost everything. The storm passed, and with it, something else changed in Jake's heart. Clara didn't just bring food anymore. She brought laughter, light, and a feeling Jake hadn't dared to touch since his wife died. One spring morning, as the sun rose over the ranch, the twins played in the yard, and Clara stood by the fence watching them. Jake walked up behind her, holding his hat in his hands. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think I was done livin', just raising these babies 'cause I had to. But you showed me there's still something left worth livin' for." Clara turned to him, her eyes soft. "You already had everything worth livin' for, Jake. You just needed a little help seeing it." He smiled, the first real smile in a long time. "Maybe. But I reckon I'd like to see it with you around." Clara blushed, looking down. The twins giggled, the wind blew gently, and for the first time in months, the cabin felt like a home again. The lonely cowboy who thought he'd never manage had found hope, love, and a new family. Help doesn't come with a shout. Sometimes it comes with a quiet knock and a loaf of bread. If this story touched your heart, drop A in the comments. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more heartwarming Wild West tales.